What's going on, everyone? Welcome into the 15th episode of Jack's Mailbag, the series where I answer your Gamecock baseball and Gamecock athletics questions. If you have a question you want answered on next week's episode, be sure to drop a comment below on this YouTube video, or I'll have a post on the Gamecock Central Insiders Forum where you can go ahead and leave all your questions that you want to talk about. Anything, literally sports, life, anything y'all want to talk about. Let's do it. We'll have a good time. And yeah, we got a ton of questions this week. I literally just got back from Hoover, Alabama earlier this morning. I'm recording this Sunday afternoon, but I got back probably around 2:30 in the morning after leaving the SEC tournament, after South Carolina wrapped up its fifth and final game of the week with a 12-11 loss to LSU. And we got a lot of questions this week. A lot of people want to talk baseball, and we're going to jump right into it with our first question from Jeff 2001, who asks, "Hi, Jack. Where's the nearest bridge?" So where I'm at, there's a bridge on I-77 right between Rock Hill and Fort Mill, and that is right there. It's a cool bridge. And then for Columbia, obviously you have the bridge that connects the city to Casey, I believe. So not sure what you're interested in doing, but be safe out there. Next question comes from WJM41, who asks, "When can we expect to see a PC with firing?" So, I'm not sure. I don't know if he's going to get fired. I mean, I answer all these questions regardless, because I feel like, I owe that to you guys, and try to answer every question the best I can. And even the questions about Mark Kingston, potentially getting fired, which in my opinion, I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm just speaking truthfully here. He had a good week in Hoover. South Carolina went 3-2 and played very well for the most part. Obviously, they made errors and stuff, and we'll get into all that later and kind of what went wrong. But I think you have to give some credit. South Carolina was on a 6-game losing streak entering this week in the SEC tournament. And, if they had lost their first game to Alabama, we might be talking about this team not even making the tournament. But they had a great week, and now they're going to be in the tournament, probably as a 2 seed, and they have a good chance to win a regional if they can clean some of these defensive mistakes up. But I feel like some of the I don't know if I want to use hate, but like some of the negativity and talk online, directed towards Kingston is a little unwarranted. I mean, look, I feel like people are it's weird because, I've been covering this team this whole season, and, I've been trying to be more active on the Insiders Forum and stuff, and on Twitter and stuff, when interacting with you guys and stuff. And it's crazy that, after the first LSU game, and despite how well South Carolina have been playing, it's right back to firing Kingston. And it's, everyone wants him gone and stuff, even though, in my opinion, he didn't really do that much wrong. It's not his fault that South Carolina's making defensive errors out there. And, he used his best relief pitcher in a spot where you have a chance to save the game. And look, Chris Veach was out of gas, I think, but you had to do what you had to do, and I would have used him too. So I don't blame him there. And then obviously yesterday with the 12-11 loss to LSU, the second loss on a walk-off 2-run homer. Look, I mean, he threw just about everyone he could. Sam Simpson pitched well. Roman Kimball pitched well. Again, it is not necessarily his fault that his defenders out in the infield and the outfield cannot field the ball cleanly. You're telling me that it's Mark Kingston's fault that a ball got underneath Kennedy Jones's glove in left field? No, I don't think so. And look, I know people want to talk about fundamentals and stuff, and that the coaches aren't teaching it the right way and all that. Look, I think these coaches are trying to do what they can. Obviously, they got to do more this week to get the best out of these players, and that's on them. If this stuff happens again next week and there's been no change, then that's a different story. But look, I mean, I'll give a perfect example that I talked about on leaving the yard with the Talmadge Lee Corey error. He fielded that ball with his glove side, so he turned his body. I'm gonna try to replicate this as best I can. He turned his body this way to try and field a ground ball that was coming at him this way. If you get in front of that ball, you're going to try to make that play. And I say that because later in the game, Ethan Petrie got a ball hit to him just as hard at first base, and it hit his chest, and he was able to knock it down and get the out. So if Talmadge does anything like that in an 8-0 game with 2 outs, you're getting out of that inning, and and at the very least, it's an infield single for Michael Braswell instead of an RBI single that gives LSU its first run, and then they go on a scoring run from there. And then Lee Ellis not being able to make those plays in the ninth inning, that's a different story. And then Matthew Becker making an error throw to first base. Again, these are not all on Mark Kingston. Again, as much as I know you guys do not like him, I mean, I feel like at this point, just speaking truthfully here, I feel like some of y'all are just wanting to complain about Kingston just because, right? And look, I think he did an okay job this week, and South Carolina played well enough to earn their spot of where they're going. I mean, they're moving up from a 3 seed to a 2 seed potentially, and we'll get into more of the discussion on all that soon here. But I don't think it's warranted that I don't know, but I think I've rambled on a little too long about that. But point is, I think his job is safer right now, but ultimately, I do think he still needs to win a regional to officially secure his spot back for next year. Clowny Posse asks, do you agree that pineapple has no place on a pizza? So I used to not be a big pineapple on pizza guy, but over the last few months, if you guys follow me on Twitter or anything, you'll know that I occasionally whip up a good pizza, homemade pizza, and do it from scratch most of the time. I do buy my own dough from Dano's, though. So that's the only thing that I do use that's not from scratch. But I have made pineapple pizzas for close friends and stuff in the past, since that's typically their cup of tea. And I've tried it, and honestly, I kind of dig it. It's pretty good. So that's just my opinion. But I used to not be a pineapple on pizza guy, but I dig it. It's an acquired taste, but if you get used to it, it's not too bad. Hopkins Cock 56 asks, thank you for your great coverage, Jack. 2 questions. Was the steal of home a called play or just a snap decision by our runner, in your opinion? And number 2, you have watched Talmadge LeCroy play all year. What is going on with him? Injury, confidence? All right, let's roll the clip.
Was Jackson stealing on his own?
I'm not going to give you the secrets of that play because we might want to pull it out in the future. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Sorry.
I don't know, man. That play was so weird. And I play that clip because Mark Kingston was referring to the steal of home by Blake Jackson, trying to steal home, I should say. And it obviously didn't work out. And that whole game yesterday was a absolute disaster in just every sense of the word. 10th inning, South Carolina's got runners on the corners with 2 out, left-handed pitcher on the mound for LSU, and Jackson tries taking home, and he gets gunned down by a mile. And then obviously later in the game, as South Carolina's taking the field defensively, they come off the field, and then a balk and interference call is eventually called, and it gave South Carolina an 11-10 lead. It was so weird. I've never seen anything like that in my time covering games in South Carolina. It was so strange and out of the ordinary. But with that play, the way Kingston talked about it, I feel like he's not saying it, but I feel like I don't know, with the steal of home, that I think it was all Jackson. That's just my opinion. I'm not sure what exactly it was. That's just me. I don't know. I feel like Kingston there would have said it was on him if that was the case. Like, I don't know. It was very weird, but also a strange answer. So I'm not sure. Part of the second question with Talmadge LeCroy, look, I think it's just confidence. I think he's not hitting well right now. He was 0 for 11 at one point this week in Hoover, and then eventually got his first hit against LSU a few nights ago. And then his defense has been awful, like straight up. Like, it has not been good. And he's bobbled a bunch of balls. He's had a few errors. I mean, what do you do? I mean, they got to the point where Kingston and company felt they had to take him out, I think, after that 4th inning there and pinch hit with Lee Ellis. And obviously Ellis made some mistakes later in the game. But that's where they're at right now. And look, some of y'all want to say that if Gavin Cassis weren't hurt and he were out there, these mistakes wouldn't be happening. I beg to differ. Like, Cassis has made his fair share of errors this week too. And despite having some homers and a great, diving catch and, in foul territory, he still made errors this week. And it's all over with this infield. Like, everyone on this team has made defensive mistakes this week, it feels like. And besides maybe like Austin Brindling and Blake Jackson. But like everyone else, like, they've made errors. Like, the entire infield has been a mess at one point or another this week. So they got to clean it up, but we'll have to see what happens. Next question comes from 85 alum who asks, has Kingston saved his job? What regional are you thinking? A 2 seed, I assume. I have to agree with you. I definitely do think a 2 seed. I think they've earned their spot as a 2 seed in whatever regional they get to go to. The latest projections at the time of recording this was with D1 Baseball, the Chapel Hill regional with UNC as the 3 seed there, the top 3 seed. That would be a tough one. I know South Carolina beat North Carolina in the regular season in a midweek game, but that was then. This is now. It's going to be at their home turf. So we'll have to see if that ultimately ends up being the case. Me, though, I think they're going to go to Clemson. I just think that makes a little more sense here. But I also could see them going to the Raleigh regional, which I think in terms of favorability, I think that's probably where they would have the best chance of winning a regional. And if they do, I think Kingston does save his job. I do. I mean, some of y'all are not going to like that. Some of y'all just despise the man just to despise him. I don't get it, truthfully. I think he's a nice guy, and I don't think he's that half bad of a coach. Do I agree with all his decisions? Absolutely not. I don't agree with some of the stuff he does at all with his bullpen decisions from time to time. But I got to give him credit where it's due. I do think he made pretty much about as good of moves as he could with the bullpen this week in what was essentially a bullpen game day after day. And by the third game of the week, I mean, that bullpen was worn out. So you had to use guys that you normally don't use, and you got good results. And now you have a better bullpen set up for next week with wherever you go for the regional. So, but I do think Kingston does save his job if they win a regional this week. Let's see. Next question comes from Henders90, who asks, "Can I get you a selfie stick for your videos?" So I clarified this on the Insiders Forum yesterday when I got this question, but I do have a selfie stick that also serves as a tripod. I got it for like $20 at Walmart a few months ago when I started doing these leaving the yard videos. And normally what I do, I'll give you guys the behind the scenes look of what it is like to record leaving the yard. Normally, the stadium will be cleared out by the end of the game, and I'll go, in the stands, and I'll normally post up my tripod on like a table, or I've even put it on like a garbage can or a recycling bin, whatever the case might be, so it gets level with my face, like I'm talking to you guys now. Because though this week with Hoover being like game after game and the fans being in the stands and stuff, it's been tough to record with the tripod. And I could technically use the selfie stick, but it's not exactly that easy. Like I can't explain it really without it making a ton of sense. The selfie stick I use won't like stay level, I guess per se. Like it'll like fall down. I don't know how to explain. It'll rotate, which is weird. So I've just been hand holding it and recording my leaving the yard videos, and I think it's been fine. But we'll have to see. I hope y'all are enjoying those though. I keep getting comments and people telling me that they like them. So I'm going to continue doing it as long as I can this season, and then we'll see. I might carry this over into football season under a different subtitle, and basketball season too. But it's definitely nice to do these videos and expand my range a little bit. Next question comes from Surspur 12216, who asks, "Thanks for all the great coverage of the season, Jack." Thank you. I appreciate it. What do you think Kingston does at third base for the NCAA tournament going forward? So ideally, Gavin Cassis would be back, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Kingston did say you could get like a Christian Walker situation with the broken hamate bone in the wrist, if that ultimately is what it is. Apparently, there's not really much positive news right now with that. So I don't expect him to play next week in the regional, but I think you don't go back to Talmadge League, Roy. Unless something changes over the week with his defense, I don't see it. I think I don't know, man. Like, here's something I would do, and this is just a test. I could be wrong on this. I remember Ethan Petrie as a freshman in fall camp 2 years ago playing some third base. It's not that far-fetched to think he could go out there and field some grounders at third. I think you can get him right this week, get him over there, and then put Tyler Causey at first base. I know he hasn't played in weeks, but man, he's a good hitter too when he gets hot. So And I feel like he basically would be the perfect replacement for Cassis in terms of hitting and potentially defense. I mean, he's not a great defender at first, but I think Petrie's a pretty good defender, and I think he could play third base pretty well. But we'll have to see what happens. But that's just my 2 cents on it. But realistically, I think they're going to probably go with Lee Ellis at third, but who knows? Next question comes from West Ashley Gamecock, who asks, "What the hell happened to Lee Croy and our defense in general? Cost us both games against LSU." Yeah, you're right on the money about that. The South Carolina's defense was horrible against LSU, but I think with the way if they don't make those errors, it's a completely different ballgame. I think South Carolina wins both those games, but obviously they didn't, and the defense was horrible. 12 errors will never win you a game, but of course, it comes against LSU. Next question comes from Hampton Rhodes, who asks, "Hey, Jack, first of all, thanks for all your coverage. I appreciate it, Hampton. Very disappointed in the loss, although giving them 8 runs just doesn't lead to wins. Sorry, Braswell's hit in the fourth was an error, which led to 6 runs. Should we expect to see changes at that third, and who that may be?" Yeah, like I just said, hypothetically speaking, it's probably going to be Lee Ellis, but if I had to go with some different solution to this, I would put Tyler Causey at first and try to work Ethan Petrie at third. Not sure how that would work, but we'll have to see what happens. Next question comes from Kitchen Labs, who asks, "Do we learn our destination tomorrow or Monday?" So the way it's going to work is that the top 16 national seeds will be determined tonight, Sunday night. I can't remember what time or what channel it's on, but South Carolina will be learning the field of 64 and where it's going for the regional tomorrow, Monday at noon on ESPN2. So stay tuned for that, and I'll have all the coverage on GamecockCentral.com, and we'll see what happens. I think South Carolina's going to be a 2 seed and in the Clemson regional. That's just my prediction, though. Next question comes from Riley Cock, who asks, "Where is Williamson?" And this is in reference to Austin Williamson, who hasn't pitched in God knows how long. I don't know officially, but I don't think he's on the team anymore. I think that's kind of what the case is. But next question comes from Foul Moodin 99, who says, "Nice job, Jack. Like the immediate score and play update in the thread. We have an SEC record for hit by pitches. Is that more of a result of intentionally trying to pitch inside more, or is the pitching just that awful all around?" So are you talking I'm assuming this question's in reference to the pitching, hitting a lot of guys, although South Carolina offense gets plunked a ton. I think it's more so just getting pitching inside and just accidentally clipping guys. I don't think it's intentional. Think back to the Georgia series where South Carolina was getting hit at an alarming rate, and they didn't, and the pitching staff didn't retaliate. I think that should tell you everything you need to know, and that it's not intentional. It just happens. Next question comes from GB Sox, who says, "Jack, thank you for your insight in a very frustrating season. My biggest frustration is strengths of our early 2010 teams. Good to great starting pitching, great relief pitching, starters getting to the 7th, and Mata, Taylor, and Price, game over. And great defense are the weaknesses of this team. Really don't have a question, but presenting an observation and venting." Got to agree with you. I think the starting pitching is doing great. I shouldn't say starting pitching. I think the bullpen's doing great with what they've got. You've learned that you have a lot of new guys that can go out there and get outs. Parker Marlott, Roman Kimball, Sam Simpson is an option now. You have a lot of more guys that can go out. Tyler Dean, Tyler Pitzer, obviously, Jake McCoy. You have so many different guys that in most cases you can actually go out there and trust to get out and keep the game close as long as your offense does what they've been doing. But defense, they're horrific. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Next question comes from 1M Creekcock, who says, "Jack, has your rookie season of covering Gamecock baseball been easier or harder than you expected?" Yes is not an option. Thanks for the great coverage. Look, man, this season's been crazy. I've been covering the team since 2020, but consistently, the last 2 years have definitely been it. And then obviously, with this season, this is my first year on the full-time beat. So it's been a wild season. Look, it's baseball. There are greater tragedies out there than some bad baseball at times, but life's hard. Things happen, and everything's gonna be okay. And I think with this baseball team, they'll be fine. And it's been a fun year. I've enjoyed it, man. That's despite some of the bad times, like the last 2 weeks with Tennessee and Georgia, I've had a lot of fun. So, and I enjoy getting to interact with you guys and share some great stories and videos with y'all. Next question comes from Washington Cock, who asks, Jack, thanks for your coverage in Hoover. Really appreciate Washington. What is your impression of your first trip to this baseball stadium and Hoover itself? Which fan base had the most vocal fans? Did you get to hear that annoying whistler for Vandy? Unfortunately, I did not get to hear about a whistler for Vandy. I'm not too sure about what's going on there. Which fan base had the most vocal fans? I'll go top 3 fan bases this week. Mississippi State, I believe. Not Vanderbilt. I'm sorry. Mississippi State, LSU for sure. LSU was crazy this week. And then I think Tennessee was also wild too. And look, most of the fan bases were crazy this week. That's just kind of the SEC for you, and it's never tough. But I definitely have to say, LSU probably gets the nod for me just because their fan base is wild. I mean, they had a guy leading chants the whole game, and it felt like a game at Alex Box Stadium, in my opinion, which is where LSU's home games are. So it was crazy. My impressions of my first trip to Hoover, it was awesome. It was so much fun. I had a great time. The baseball is literally second to none. It's great games all the time. The SEC does an outstanding job every time with these tournaments. And thank you to the Southeastern Conference for improving my credentials and all that, and having me out. And the food and stuff, unbelievable. I could do a whole video just on all this stuff. Hoover itself, I think Hoover's fine. I did go to Birmingham for like a few meals here and there. And I checked out the stadium where I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but the stadium where the Giants and Cardinals are going to be playing next month in Birmingham. It's really historic, real old. I think Negro League type stadium. I know the Barons are playing there like the day before the MLB game takes place, but it's one of those games like the Field of Dreams and all that where you play this one-time site. It's going to be cool. So we'll have to see what happens. But next question comes from Powers803, who says, thank you for your hard work. Can you do a list of players that have exhausted their eligibility? Austin Williamson, did he leave the team? Yeah, I don't think he's on the team anymore. But based on the senior day celebrations, Dalton Reeves, Garrett Gainey, Ty Good, Austin Brindling, Gavin Cassis, Parker Noland, I think that's everyone. I think those are the guys that will not be back next year. And then obviously you could get some draft eligible guys like Eli Jersenbeck, Cole Messina potentially. Ethan Petrie's only 19, by the way. He doesn't turn 20 till next month, I don't think. So you could potentially have him back next year, but we'll have to see. Next question comes from Give 'em to Spurs, who says, appreciate you, Jack, and the coverage of our beloved Gamecocks. I was wondering, with how well Reeves did behind the plate, do you think we move Messina to third? I forgot about that. Messina could technically play third too, but I wouldn't do that. I don't think he's athletic enough to make that type of play over at third with some of the balls that have been hit really hard. I know he played third there in high school a little bit and possibly a game or two last year. And here's how Give 'em to Spurs has the infield and outfield and position players listed out. Reeves at catcher, Petrie first, Nolan second, Tippett short, Messina third, Jones left, Brindling center, Jackson right, DH, Causey, Bakes, or Brewer. I like it. I think it's pretty good. I just don't know how Messina would do over at third, but I wouldn't be opposed to doing it. Next question comes from Gamecock CPA 11, who says, when are the 16 host sites announced? It's typically before the selection show and the rest of the field is announced, but can't figure out exactly when this year. It's tonight, and then the field of 64 is announced tomorrow. And that is going to actually do it for all the questions this week. Again, thank you guys for all your questions. I know it was a hard loss yesterday for South Carolina, but it was definitely nice to be able to talk about it here and kind of give a little bit of my 2 cents on it. If you guys, like I said, have any questions you want answered for next week's episode, I'm going to try to get back on the normal format. It might be a little tough this week because I will be heading to wherever the regional is for South Carolina, and that might be Thursday or Friday. Who knows? But regardless, I'm going to do another episode as usual of Jack's Mailbag. And if you guys have any questions you want answered on next week's episode, be sure to drop a comment below on this video, or I'll have a post on the Insiders Forum where you can drop all your questions, and that is on GamecockCentral.com. So that's going to do it for me this week. Happy Memorial Day, guys. Be safe out there. Enjoy it, and I will talk to you guys again soon. Bye.